And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. And starting with the sea ice, on this Tuesday afternoon, we have the ice. It did actually push far enough south to just east of the Pribilovs, and it has since tended to melt off. At least the main pack ice is back up a little further northward now, as the northerly push of the winds is not quite as strong as what it was, and where we're at the season, the melting that's occurring at this point. The weather pattern coming up here the next couple of days, well, we're watching for a bigger push of cold air to come down from the Bering, from off of eastern Russia and the Chukchi Sea. That's going to be heading south here later this week, especially Friday. There'll be a broader northerly flow set up across the central Bering and pushing some colder air all the way down across the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula as we go through Friday into Saturday. And there's going to be a stronger low kind of redevelop the broader circulation right over the Alaska Peninsula into the southeast Bering and then up into this side of the North Pacific, leading up into the Western Gulf. For late tonight into Wednesday morning, couple of areas of low pressure, ones pivoting back toward the Kenai Peninsula with some accumulating snow in areas like Ninilchek down through Anchor Point and Homer, and some of that may spread further northeastward up along the west side of the Kenai Peninsula into Soldotna and Nikiski, and then also up around Anchorage. There could be additional light snow. We had a trough today come up into the Panhandle that had enhanced the rain and snow showers late last night and through the day Tuesday, and that's just going to kind of lag in this region. As we go into Wednesday, there's going to be another couple of areas of low pressure that are going to pivot back toward the north and west. Still, some showers along the Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle. It's an unstable pattern that will persist because we have this broader low circulation like this. We have cold air up here. That colder air is going to begin to be pulled southward as we get a couple of lows that come in off of eastern Russia and then across the central Bering Sea late in the week. So by Thursday afternoon, we have still low pressure anchored here over the western Gulf, keeping some impulses of moisture working their way across the Kenai, Prince William Sound, and upper Cook Inlet. Here we have had those lows rotate up toward Haida Gwaii, and that's going to enhance rain and snow across parts of the Panhandle. Snow mainly up in the upper elevations of the coastal mountains, rain along the coast and at sea level. And then out here is the hint of that colder air beginning to come southward, and that'll be more notable by the time we get into Friday. But across the Panhandle, southeast is looking on Wednesday for southeast to south winds, 15 to 20 knots, waves 3, maybe 4 feet down there toward Ketchikan and Metlakatla. For the outer coast, outside of the icy strait to off of Sitka and Craig, generally south winds of 25 knots, waves 6-7 feet, and then southeast winds outside of Yakutat Bay, maybe as high as 20-25 knots, falling off to 15 knots at Cape Suckling with 6-foot waves. On Thursday, we find winds as the next impulse is lifting north with the low pressure that is over Haida Gwaii. Winds initially will be out of the east here along the outer coast, 20 knots, but there could be some gusts, especially Dixon Entrance, upwards of 35 knots. And then for the inner channels, northwest winds around Ketchikan, Metlakatla at 20 knots. Northeast winds of 15 knots within Stevens Passage, and then up here at Lynn Canal, north winds to 15 knots, and continuing up the coast, winds generally easterly at 20 knots. For the northwestern Gulf, we're still going to have general low pressure and moisture along here, those lingering showers, rain and snow showers, especially the coldest air is out here toward Cook Inlet. Still could have some snow showers there, whereas here the air is a little milder. So Prince William Sound, Hinchinbrook Entrance, just mainly rain showers there. South-southeast winds 20 knots, waves 3 feet there within Prince William Sound. Winds out of Turnagain Arm out of the east-southeast 20 knots, but as we get down toward Anchor Point and especially out of Camashack Bay, look for westerly winds to 30 knots with waves as high as 8 to 9 feet, lower Cook Inlet and Kennedy Entrance. For Thursday, southeast winds 10 knots within Prince William Sound, 2-foot waves, east-southeast winds 15 knots outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance, and then generally northeast winds along the Kenai coast. But as we look at Cook Inlet, upper middle Cook Inlet, northwest winds 10 to 15 knots, but westerly 25 knots there from Camashack Bay over toward Homer, with waves running about 5 feet. Across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds are generally going to be out of the northwest there in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, 25 knots. As we trail out along the Alaska Peninsula, those northwest winds come down a bit, 15 to 20 knots, and then become more west-southwesterly there at False Pass and Cold Bay. Waves running 3 to 5 feet on the North Pacific side and right around 6 feet outside of Bristol Bay and down here along the peninsula on the Bering side. For Thursday, west winds in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 knots. Otherwise, northwest winds along the length of the Alaska Peninsula at around 15 knots, and waves 2-3 feet on the North Pacific side and 2 to 4 feet on the Bering side. Winds will generally be out of the west, 20 knots here for the eastern Aleutians, including Nikolsky and Unalaska on Wednesday. As we pull back west, Adak up to east of Kiska, just variable winds around 10 knots before winds become easterly, 15 to 20 knots out toward Shemya. And for Thursday, winds will be out of the north-northeast across the eastern Aleutians, Unalaska and Nikolsky, and then generally east winds that'll pick up to 25 to 30 knots, especially from near and west of Adak through Kiska and Shemya. Along the southwest coast, we have a southerly wind of 10 knots into Kuskokwim Bay, but northwest winds here out of Bristol Bay at 15 knots. North to west winds from St. Matthew down to St. Paul, but only around 15 knots. And along the lower Yukon coast, north of Nunavik Island, up into Norton Sound, we're looking at southerly winds at 10 to 15 knots. For Thursday, winds will be variable in the vicinity of the Pribilofs, just around 10 knots. There's a weak area of low pressure that will be working its way southeastward. And we expect north-northwest winds out of Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays at 15 knots. Along the lower Yukon coast and that wider expanse of Norton Sound, winds will be northwesterly near 15 knots. And then across the west side of the Seward Peninsula and the north side of St. Lawrence Island, north winds 15 knots on Wednesday. Kind of a mixed bag of winds at lower Chukchi variable around 5 knots. As we get up along the northwest coast, especially Utqiagvik up through Kaktovik, generally northeast to east winds at just 10 knots. And for Thursday, kind of more of a mixed bag of winds southwest to west, Prudhoe Bay on over to Kaktovik at 10 knots. Northeast winds Utqiagvik at 10 knots, and then onshore northwest wind there around Wainwright and Point Lay. But as we come around the Lisburn Peninsula, Point Hope, winds are northeast 5 to 10 knots, turning westerly into Kotzebue Sound at about 10 knots. And then fairly light winds for a change there along the west side of the Seward Peninsula and north side of St. Lawrence Island. We're looking at northwest winds 5 to 10 knots there, Wales, Port Clarence, as well as Savunga and Gamble during the day Thursday.